We were looking at these extraordinary payouts to the FBI agent Peter Strzok and former FBI attorney Lisa Page. 800,000, 1.2 million megabucks. What's your take on it, George?
Well, I think it's Joe Biden paying everybody out who instigated Russiagate. This was one of the most shocking episodes in American history. You had essentially the security state, the FBI and the CIA, who directly interfered in the 2016 election to sabotage the campaign of Donald Trump, and then once he was elected, intervened to destroy his presidency. At the heart of it was Peter Strzok, and then to a lesser extent Lisa Page, who worked for the FBI Deputy Director Andrew McCabe, who himself was also fired by the DOJ. Now, Strzok deserves absolutely nothing, zero. The claim that his privacy was violated is, of course, ludicrous, because he was carrying out a love affair with a colleague, Lisa Page, and passing on messages on a government-issued phone. So it's a government-issued phone, so their privacy doesn't arise. But what's particularly important is that in these messages, we were able to put together the timeline of Russiagate, which is he clearly instigated this, lied about this, and but he clearly and made sure that whatever happens, even if he is not able to produce any evidence in support of any of these ridiculous conspiracies of Trump and Russia, he would do so much damage to Trump that either he would lose the election, or his presidency would be sabotaged. And the second part actually did work. I mean, his presidency was in many ways sabotaged. Now, we have an official government report, the Durham report, published a couple of years ago, and Durham goes into great detail of the malevolence of Peter Strzok, and that Peter Strzok started that investigation, the Trump-Russia investigation, without doing any basic research. He didn't even go into the FBI intelligence database to find out, well, is there anything here indicating that there's a history of Trump-Russia connections? He didn't go to the CIA or any of the other government agencies to look into and see, are there any Trump-Russia connections? Because, of course, he would have come up with zilch. So there was nothing. So he did it with malevolent intent. This is an official government report, malevolent intent. And now this low-life scumbag gets $1.2 million. Well, what's behind it? Obviously, Biden is sweeping things under the rug in preparation for his exit. And we should just remember, we'll talk about this more, Biden was also at the heart of Russiagate and the attempt to use Russia to get Trump.
It is extraordinary, isn't it? Martin, what's your take on it?
I think George has done a brilliant job summarizing it all up. I mean, we should remember that time, what was going on. There was scaremongering going on, a witch hunt by the Biden administration, by the Biden camp, to try and ensnare and defame Trump using this idea of Russiagate. Russiagate was this notion put forward that the Russians were interfering in the presidential election process. And when we hear about the story of these two individuals who were having an affair at a certain point, it's hilarious. Who commissioned this guy? Clearly he didn't. I think George is right. I think he was probably directed to go ahead with this investigation and not look for the truth, but look for a way of navigating around the truth and come up with as much baloney as he possibly could. It did have an effect. It did have an impact. We know from the text messages that it started as early as 2015 and went on beyond the date of Trump and the election. Went on, I think, another couple of years at least. So, the politics of the intelligence and the police community, I think, is worrying. The amount of interference from political elites who can, in America, Biden actually taking over or searching and selecting particular officers within the intelligence community to go ahead with this witch hunt, I think is worrying. But I think George is absolutely right. This is now another dark stain on the Biden camp and the Biden legacy. I think so much graft, so many corruption stories have really tainted this guy that to basically instruct the Department of Justice to come up with well over $1 million now to pay off these two, to reward them, because that's what it is, really, isn't it? Let's be honest. It's all about rewarding them. I think that's not going to hold very well. I mean, in history, I think the people are going to be quite cruel on Joe Biden over the longer period, and I think we're going to see a number of these cases, a number of examples of Biden paying off people or giving exemptions to their present cases, and probably his son, probably Hunter. I think that's probably the next thing we'll hear about. So that whole episode, of that particular period of when this witch hunt was going on, coincided with the New York Post releasing their really hot and steamy, salacious allegations, of Hunter Biden's laptop and the emails. If you remember all that, at exactly that time, just a matter of a couple of weeks before the election, this story was quashed completely by Biden, by 50 senators, who signed a letter saying this was Russia fake news. And so, there's a lot of this going on at the time. There was a lot of corruption and a lot of people getting brown envelopes and media manipulation to that sort of extent. And it just shows the extent, it shows the level of how far this administration went to sully its hands to get what it wanted. And I think George is absolutely right. It did impact the Trump presidency. There was a real shadow, a cloud over the presidency, and probably affected, his second re-election term.
Oh, no, I absolutely. They always say, tell a lie often enough, it becomes the truth. And this is what you do, whether it's going to be crooked Hillary Clinton or the whole Russia's interference and so on and so forth. You get a bonus point because Peter Strzok, basically, he was central, as you say, to the Russia-Trump investigation. He came up with a code name Crossfire. So either of you, George or Martin, a bonus point since it's a Monday. Where does that song lyric come from?
I don't know, Martin, you may know.
No, you've stumped me. I don't know.
Oh, I'll tell you what. It comes from Jumping Jack Flash. It's the
Flash.
First line.
Okay, the Stones.
There you go.
Yeah.
First line. I was born in a crossfire hurricane, and apparently it's a reference to Richard was born in London during World War II in the midst of German air raid. Just a minor bit of trivial stuff. It will come up in the middle of it all. But you are right, though. There's going to be more and more of these tidying up, effectively, isn't it? If you're rewarding people who appear to have done some good in spreading disinformation on.
Critically analyzing global affairs. The Muckrakers on today's News Talk, TNT.